Hi learners, welcome to this session. In today's session, we are going to discuss about AWT controls in Java. So using these AWT controls, quite in the 1990s itself, Java introduced Windows-based programming. That is, the user would select an option given on the list, or he would click a button to provide an input to the program. Let's look at the concept in detail. Let us see in detail about AWT controls in Java. First, we'll begin with the introduction. Java Abstract Window Toolkit is an API, application programming interface, to develop GUI-based applications or Windows-based applications in Java. So GUI-based applications, in the sense, we are going to go for graphical user interface-based applications. So as I said earlier, here, instead of the user typing input using the keyboard, he's also going to use other controls like clicking and dragging on the screen, or double-clicking a button, or choosing an option on the list, or clicking on a radio button, or ticking a checkbox, etc. So Java AWT components are platform dependent. We should notice that it is platform dependent and not independent. So in the previous programming that we have done in Java, we will be saying that Java is independent. So here, using AWT controls, the components depend upon the operating system. So each operating system has its own view, and that reflects on the representation in the window. So AWT is a heavyweight component as it uses the resources of the operating system. It is not a standalone application. It depends on the resources of the operating system. So in order to use this program and the components of AWT, first of all, we have to import a package known as java.awt. So by importing java.awt package, we get the classes that are available inside the AWT package so that we can add these components to our program. So if we are going to use a text field or a label or a text area, radio button or checkbox, any of these things, we are going to include first java.awt package in our program. So java.awt calls the native platform, that is the subroutines or the applications or modules inside the components of the particular operating system. That is why initially I said that this is operating system dependent. For example, an AWT GUI component like text field, label or button will have a different look or feel in a Windows application. The same code, when we are using it on a Mac operating system or Unix operating system, it will give the user a completely different feel. This is because the AWT directly calls the native subroutines that are existing inside that particular operating system. Next, we are moving on to AWT class hierarchy. So first of all, we have the component class. Then within the component class, we are having buttons, labels, checkbox, choice, list, container, and inside container, we are having windows and panels. And inside the windows, we are having frame dialogues. So inside panel, we have applet. So here we are not going to discuss about this applet package. So we are going to see how frame, dialog, window, and containing all these components are going to work. The first one that we are going to discuss about is the components. So all the components like button, text field, scroll bars, etc. are called as components. So these elements, we use the term called as components in Java. So in Java AWT, there are classes for each component as shown in the above diagram. So here, each of the element is going to be a separate class. So if we have to use the members of these class, we have to import them inside our program, create an object for the particular element, and then access the particular class. In order to place every component in a particular place on the screen, we need to add them to a container. So first thing that we are going to create is a container. So in this container, we are going to place the elements. These elements are going to be our components. So now let's see what is a container. So container is a component in AWT that can contain other components like buttons, container. So the container is a component in AWT that can contain another components like buttons, text fields, labels, etc. The classes that extends the container class are known as container, such as the frames, dialog, and panel. It is basically a screen where the components are placed at their specific locations. So it's like a layout in which we are going to place the elements in different coordinates. So it's like plotting the points on a graph. We are going to mention here in this particular location, a component is to be placed. So the container contains the controls of the layout of components. So container itself is a component. Therefore, we can add a container inside another container. Now next, let's see what are the different types of containers. There are 4 types of containers in Java. The first one, window. The second one, panel. The next one, frame. Finally, we have dialog. The first component or the first type is window. So window is a container that have no borders and menu bars. So in this type of component, we don't have the borders or the options available. So we must use the frame or dialog or another window for creating a window. So it is not a independent component. We can use it along with any other component. So we need to create an instance of window class to create this container. So we have to use the object of the window class to create it. Next is panel. So the panel is a container that doesn't contain the title bar, border or menu. Again, here we don't have this title, border or menu. It's a generic container for holding components. So it's just a place you can allot or place the other components on it. So it can have other components like buttons, text fields, etc. So an instance of the panel class creates a container in which we can add components. So using the instance only, we are going to access this also. Next is frame. So the frame is a container that can contain title bar, border, and can have many menu bars. So it's the most preferable type of container that is in use. So it can have other components like button, text field, scroll bar, etc. And the user commonly goes in for this type of container because it is more flexible. So frame is most widely used container while developing an AWT application. So in the examples that we are going to discuss today also, we have taken the frame container. So the next type of container is dialog. So dialog represents a top level window with a with a title and a border that is used to take some form of input from the user. In other words, I can say that dialog is like a floating window. So this floating window pops up when the user has to provide an input. And once we provide an input, this dialog box disappears. So these are the methods of component class. So the component class has the following methods. First one, public void add component. So the add method has the class component for which we have the object C. So this is used to insert a component into another component. The next type of object is public void set size of int width and int height. So here we are having 2 elements, that is the width and height. So it is used to set the size of the component. The third one is set layout. So layout manager class along with the object is used to create or define the layout for a particular component. The next object is set visible. Here we set the visibility of the component, whether it is visible or not. So if we change the visibility of the component, we can disappear a component or we can make a component visible. Next, AWT example. So to create a simple AWT example, you need a frame. There are 2 ways of creating a GUI using a frame in AWT. First one, by extending the frame class using inheritance. And the second one by creating the object of the frame class, that is by using association method. So first example we are going to see using inheritance, and the second one we are going to go for creating an object of frame class and associating it. So this is the first example. So import java.awt.class. So first we are importing the java awt.class. As I said, usually we import java.io.start, java.util.start. So these packages are imported by default. In case we want to use AWT controls, we have to go in for the package called AWT. We have to import this package. Next, we are going to extend the frame class to our AWT example. So in our class, see, this is our class. So AWT example 1. So we are extending the frame class. So when we extend, we are using inheritance to bring in the concepts that were present inside frame method inside our example. So initializing using a constructor. So we are getting the same name of the class to use a constructor so that we can go forward with the direct implementation. Now we are creating a button. So to create a button, for the class button, I'm creating an object B. And within that, I'm giving the message click me. Now setting the position on the screen. So for this button, I'm setting B dot set bounds of 30, 100, 80, 30. So which are nothing but the coordinates on the screen on which the button is going to be placed. So adding button into a frame. Now we are going to add this button onto our frame. So since we have already inherited the class frame, we can directly add the button. So next is setting the frame size. So we are mentioning that the frame must be of height and width 300. So setting the title of the frame. So if we want a title of the frame to be displayed, we are going for set title and we will be giving the message that is going to be displayed. So this is our basic AWT example. So by giving this message, we will be setting this message on our frame. So no layout manager. So set layout null. So if we are not giving any additional layouts here, so I'm setting it to null. So now frame will be visible by default. If it is not visible, we have to give set visible equal to true. So it is by default, it will be visible. If we want to hide the visibility, we can give this method set visible and we can set the value as false in case we want to hide this particular frame. So now using public static void main, that is the main class, I'm going to create an object for my class AWT. So once I create this object, automatically the constructor gets called and all these components inside the constructor get called. So this is what we will be getting as the output. So this is the message that we saw, the title that we have given, button that we have created, and the positions that we have set. So the message that we gave on the screen was click me. So we have that message, or sorry, the text on the button. I hope it's clear. We'll move to the next example. So the next example is by using association. Again, for the first thing, we have to import the package AWT. Next, we go for class AWT example 2. We are creating a constructor. Now, inside this, we are using the frame class. So for frame, we are creating an object F. And we are saying that it is a method, it is the object that we are going to access the frame method. Now, we are creating a label. So the label, we are using label L equal to new label of. So the object that we are going to use is L. For button, we are going to use the object V. Next, we are creating a text field. For text field, we are going to give the object T. So setting the positions of the above components. So first we are setting the bounds, that is the coordinates on which the label must be placed. So the first one, using label object, I'm setting the bounds. So second one, using the text field object, I'm setting the bounds. Next, using the button object, I'm setting the bounds. That is on which location these three components have to be placed. Now, after giving the coordinates, we are adding these components into the frame. This is very important. Only when we add the components to the frame, these components will go and get placed on these coordinates. So here we are only mentioning what is the coordinate. So after mentioning what is the coordinate value, we will be sending these components to that coordinate value. So the frame size and width, again, it is mentioned here. So I'm setting the frame size as 400 height and width here. So setting the title of the frame. So the title of the particular frame, I'm giving the message as employee info. So on the header, I will get this info. Here also, I'm not setting a layout. So I'll give f dot set layout of null. So next, setting visibility of the frame. So f dot set visible equal to true. So by default, it is visible. We can also set the frame visibility as true. In case we want to hide this particular frame, we will give f dot set visible of false. Next, we are going to the main function, public static void main string answer. So here what we are saying is, for the class AWT example, I'm creating the object AWT OBJ. Again, since I'm having a constructor here, all the methods inside the constructor get called by itself. And we get the output. So the output will be as follows. We have the employee info, the message, the text box that label that we have given, the text box and the button. So by having the coordinates that we have mentioned, we will be getting this particular output. So in this lecture, we have seen about the different components that we are using in AWT and how they are visible to the user on the screen. So for this, we have seen the different types of components and 2 ways in which AWT programming can be done. So thank you for your patient listening.